Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nick Parkin, and welcome to our first Azure webinar. The topics this afternoon are two, right-sizing in readiness for SAP HANA and decommissioning of legacy SAP and non-SAP systems. So the agenda for this afternoon is who I'll precede, and then we're going to talk a little bit about right-sizing in readiness for HANA, and then we'll go on to talk about decommissioning SAP and non-SAP systems. So who will proceed? Just very quickly, we've been a partner of SAP's for the last 20 years. We are experts in SAP data management, which basically means moving data out of the SAP system, but allowing SAP users to still be able to view that data. And especially now around general data protection regulation, we're doing a lot of deletion of SAP data. We've been, as I said before, we've been doing this for 20 years. We're very small, we're 75 people, split across the United States, Europe, and down in India. About 250 customers in the UK. So if you look at the FTSE 100 customers that use SAP, we have most of them as clients. We also have clients in most industries in terms of public sector, pharmaceuticals, chemicals, education, etc. Lots of references as well. So again, if you need a reference on how to do this, a lot of our customers will be very happy to reference the abilities that we can do. Over the last 4 years, we've done about 100 customers, or right-sized 100 customers to HANA, which means where they've found a very expensive HANA appliance, we've been able to actually reduce the size of that database and move them into a much smaller HANA appliance. And that's really one of the reasons why we're here talking to Microsoft. We also have a master services agreement with SAP in that we do a lot of projects via SAP services, and we're also a partner of OpenText, where we do a lot of document management in terms of moving documents from SAP into the OpenText extended content management system. Okay, so the first topic is right-sizing in readiness for HANA. Lots of people ask us, does it really matter how big your HANA database is? Because we're just by a very big appliance. These big HANA appliances are incredibly expensive. And where you've got a landscape in terms of production system, pre-production, QA, test and dev, the cost of these appliances can be very costly. So yes, it does matter, and we'll show you how you go about doing this in a second. So to some extent, it's really important to get this sizing right first time, because if you don't, then the customer's going to have to come back and potentially buy some more hardware. They're not going to be very happy, and if you don't get the sizing right first time. It also reduces the implementation costs. So if we can reduce the size of the database, the implementation costs go down, and the migration times go right down as well, in terms of, you know, you've probably got weekends to do this, whereas if you have a large database, it could take weeks to do the database migration. But with our right-sizing, we're down to days. We see today many large customers with SAP systems in excess of 40 terabytes. We saw a customer recently with their business warehouse, their analytical system, that was over 260 terabytes. And these systems are very difficult to actually get into HANA. So it's really important to get this sizing correct. As I said before, you know, get it wrong, get it too small, you'll have performance problems, okay? And also, if you get it wrong small, you will have to go out and buy more equipment. Oversized, again, a waste of resources. If you oversize a HANA system, it doesn't run any faster. So it is important to get the sizing right first time. So one of our case studies here is a very large international tire manufacturer. They're one of the biggest in the world. Here we go, $16 billion revenue in 2015, 60 manufacturing plants, and in excess of 65,000 people they employ. They have across the world over 100 productive SAP servers. So this is not test and devs, these are 100 productive systems. Most on Oracle, 90% on a specific vendor's hardware. But they are looking to rationalise onto a smaller hardware platform. HANA is already employed on some of their BW systems, but they're looking to HANA for some very good business cases. One is reduction in their hardware landscape, of course. The complexity of the landscape with 100 productive systems is quite big for them. It costs them a lot of money to run these systems. Their manufacturing planning time is quite long as well. They're trying to reduce it to hours, not days. And probably the last point on here, their month-end closing every month takes 12 days. So you think about this, 12 days into the current month, they close their last financial year, 18 days later, they're starting to close the next month. So moving to HANA will actually reduce that time probably down to 3 or 4 days. So 1st of October 2017, we had a challenge. They gave Proceed a challenge. They gave us one of their big ECC6 systems at 27 terabytes and basically said, here you go, Proceed. We want you to see what you can do with this. They'd already done a previous pre-migration and worked out that they would need 6 12 terabyte HANA boxes at a cost of nearly $7.5 million just for the hardware. But the challenge was they wanted no reduction in access to data. So if we move the data off somewhere else, they still wanted to access it. It's had to be a repeatable exercise over the 100 systems, and basically they gave us 8 weeks in which to do this. So my analogy for this is if you were moving from a 5-bedroom house into a luxury studio flat, what would you do? You'd literally have to go around each room saying, I want to throw that bit of furniture away, I'm going to put that bit of furniture into storage, and I will take this piece of furniture into my luxurious studio flat. And that's what we did with the SAP system. We literally looked at that system and said, what can we throw away? What can we put into storage so they can still get it? What do they want to take to HANA? So we analysed the system. Basically, we calculated if they wanted to move that 27 terabytes, they would need a 10 terabyte HANA box. That's what they worked out themselves. But we needed to get that 27 terabytes down to about 6 terabytes to enable us to get into a 2 terabyte HANA box. So that was the challenge. So we talked to the users and we realized that we could actually delete about 4 terabytes, which was really old data in their system. We moved 15 terabytes to a SAP technology called ILM, Information Lifecycle Management, which allows us to archive that data, but then get that data back so the users could still view it. And basically, what was left, we actually were able to get into a 1.5 terabyte HANA box. The savings was tremendous. So the cost of that hardware was only about $1.5 million. So we saved them $5.9 million for a project, RightSizing project, that only cost them $250,000. So at the end of the day, they were incredibly happy. Big savings, big improvements in performance, and a low cost of a project. Out of that project came a tool set that we now use for every HANA project. We call it the HANA RightSizer. It's a tool that we install on the client's SAP system. So we would install it on one of your SAP clients' SAP systems. The tool runs for 2 or 3 days, collects a lot of stats and does an analysis, and then basically the customer can play a what-if game to say, how big a HANA system can I get into? If I just delete data or if I archive data, if I do this, what size HANA box can I get into? So as I said before, we've done over 100 of these now with great success. The tool is very flexible. We install the tool and we leave the tool on site for a customer. so that we can actually, either from a consultancy point of view, do it ourselves, or the customer can actually work out the size of the HANA box for themselves. So one of the things that we have learnt with our 100 projects is that really you should try to right-size the source system first before you move it to HANA, because this gives you, as we said before, great savings plus a speed up in the actual database migration. To some extent, what everybody needs to do is gain experience of HANA. There is a shortage of HANA people out in the market, and actually giving it to somebody that knows how to actually run a HANA system is a good idea, like Microsoft Azure. If a customer's already got a BW system installed, then again, it's a good place to start first of actually doing that database migration for BW to HANA, because you get good experience. Also, do some form of proof of concept. I think most customers will play with HANA before they actually do their physical production environment move. As I said, it's not as simple as a database migration. Lots of people think, well, just do a database migration and it will work. Unfortunately, it needs looking after, it needs time. So it is not straightforward as it appears. But it does give you, HANA does give you great flexibility. It is incredibly fast. You get great benefits out of it because you can do lots of things in a shorter space of time. So with HANA, it is worth trying to get the right sizing done. One of the things that Proceed provide, and we very happily provide it to any SAP customer, is a free assessment. It runs a couple of standard SAP transactions. You give us the data back, and then we can actually tell you how big a HANA device you can get into by doing certain data management things like deleting or archiving. We run these all the time. We produce a report, and then basically we will go into a customer and actually present this back to a customer in terms of a report and a workshop. So the next subject for this afternoon is legacy decommissioning for SAP and non-SAP systems. And what we tend to find is that as customers are moving to HANA, some customers will do a database migration, but some customers will do a re-implementation of their SAP system. Therefore, they have a legacy SAP system left behind, and really they need that data still for all sorts of reasons. So we've come up with a decommissioning approach to allow people to decommission those old SAP systems. And of course, at the same time, if a customer has non-SAP systems, we can do that as well. I think one of the issues with decommissioning is it is like the iceberg. You see some of the data, but there is a lot of data out there that people don't realise they have. So when you move to a new ERP system, everybody thinks, well, I've got all my data in that new ERP system. Well, unfortunately, they don't. They've got data sitting in legacy systems, probably legacy document management systems that need to be decommissioned somehow. And lots of people ask us, why do I need to decommission these systems, or why do I need to keep this data? Well, one of the reasons is just from a legal requirement, a tax requirement. So in the UK, for instance, we have Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, which basically can walk into a customer at any time and ask to do a value-added tax inspection, or if you pay people through the SAP system, a PAYE audit. Unfortunately, if you only move a fraction of your data onto your new ERP system, all that old data is sitting in your old systems. Therefore, you still need to keep that. And in certain industries, you need to keep data for a very long time. So pharmaceuticals, for instance, need to keep data for at least 50 years, and aerospace companies probably even longer. Also, the fact that lots of people think, well, I've got all my data in there, I can just report off that data in my new ERP system. Well, typically users will want to access data old supplier information, old customer information, and that data sitting in those legacy systems. So you need to keep them running. The other issue is that, again, users will typically want to go back and look at things like supplier performance, customer performance. And if you've only moved a year or 2 years worth of data over to your new ERP system, then all of that very valuable analytical information is still sitting in those legacy systems. So it is quite important to be able to go back to those. Also, you have the issue of license costs. If you're going to keep an old ERP system running, it's probably an application software from another vendor. You may have to pay the license costs, maintenance costs to actually keep it going. And we see many customers that have got legacy systems been running for 10, 15, 20 years, where every year they're paying the maintenance costs of those legacy systems. You also, of course, have the hardware costs. Don't forget, probably every 5 years you need to refresh your hardware. So if you've got to have a system that you've got to keep for 20 years, that's probably at least 4 hardware refreshes just to keep that legacy data there so you can look at it. So this becomes incredibly costly for customers. So really, it's a total cost of ownership, and also it's risk. So some customers think, okay, I'm going to move a couple of years of data and I'm just going to turn my legacy systems off. They are at risk from all sorts of problems, either tax, legal issues. And then some customers say, okay, we're going to virtualize that environment. But if you need to keep systems running for 10, 15, 20 years, in a virtualized environment, are you sure that in 10, 15 years' time, that virtualized environment is going to work? So really the only way of protecting this data is to do something with it and move it somewhere where you can have access to it. So that's where Proceed decommissioning comes in. And basically, we have a factory approach to decommissioning, where we sit and talk to customers that may have 10 legacy systems. The biggest one we've seen so far is a utility company in the UK where they have 850 legacy systems that they're still running. So we set up a factory, and the factory basically allows us to blueprint those legacy systems very quickly. We have some tools, which we'll talk about in a second, which allows us to decommission that data very quickly. Report on that data, and then do knowledge transfer back to the customer to show them how to actually get that data out of those legacy systems. So why we're very successful at this is because we create a very comprehensive blueprint for a customer. So we go in there, talk to the users about what they want, how they want to see the data, how long they've got to keep the data for. We also come up with a list of reports of what they want to see out of the system, okay? And then we talk to the legal department and the customer's internal audit to work out how long we need to keep this data. And then we come up with a realization plan. So this is a very comprehensive blueprint of what we're going to decommission, how we're going to do it, and how they get their data back. So we have a 4-step process. We initiate the project. We do the analysis of the data, we produce a documentation set, and then we get the customer to approve that documentation. And typically, not only do we get the customer's business users to agree it, but we get the customer's external auditor to agree it, and in some cases, the tax authority in countries to agree the way we're going to decommission that system. So we have a number of decommissioning solutions that we've built over the last 20 years. One of these uses a product from SAP called SAP ILM, which allows us to take SAP and non-SAP systems and decommission them. And we can decommission them into a warehouse or directly onto SQL Server. And we can put that data up in the cloud, in a cloud environment. So here we go. Our product is called Accelerate, and it allows us to take data out of a SAP or non-SAP system, put it into SQL Server, and then report on that data. And as I said before, we can put that data anywhere. So we can put it on premise, or we can put it into a cloud environment like Azure. One of the reasons why people like to use the Proceed tool is the fact that we can mimic those legacy systems. So for instance, on an SAP system, we've developed the top 1,200 reports out of the system so that people feel they're talking to an SAP system, except it's not an SAP system, it's our Accelerate product on SQL Server, but it mimics the way an SAP system looks and feels. And we can then develop reports on after that as well. So one of the biggest challenges with decommissioning is the fact that people will probably typically decommission one system and then work out that that's a very expensive way of doing it, and then actually stop their decommissioning project. Because we have a factory, and the factory does run like a factory, so we've got people doing the blueprint stage, we've got people doing the actual decommissioning, we've got a team building the reports and a build doing the knowledge transfer. We have economies of scale, so we can do this really, really quickly. And as I said before, the reporting tool, I think, is the main driver for us, because typically business users don't like to look at Excel spreadsheets of data where they had a nice graphical interface. So what we then produce with Accelerate is that nice graphical interface which mimics that SAP or non-SAP system. So if you need to contact us, there's my email address. Please go and log on to Proceed Group. All that data is on the Proceed Group website, but we'll be very happy to talk to you about either right-sizing or decommissioning opportunities. And please look for the cloud workshops on Azure.